And it's my understanding that white privilege is not telling individuals that they cannot speak, but it is a term for societal privilege that individuals have as a benefit of their white skin. And I don't think that, and I think universities would be remiss to then say that because you're white, you're not allowed to say anything that's critical of white people. I didn't know that white privilege actually went into that sphere. My understanding is it's just, and the issue is that white privilege makes people uncomfortable to talk about the societal privilege that they have.
Well, to me, what I say on campuses all the time is if you want to cite instances of racism that we can all find and fight together, that's something that I'm more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there is a white privilege out there in the ether and that by dint of birth your skin color generates for you an advantage, what you're really saying to people is that your view is less valuable because you have not experienced what I've experienced.
The air in the hearing room was electric, tension thick enough to cut. Lawmakers, witnesses, cameras, and a public hungry for answers all focused on a stage set for one of the most contentious debates in American politics: white privilege, free speech, and identity politics. Ben Shapiro sat quietly, eyes sharp, posture composed. Across from him, Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, ready to press him on ground she thought she could control. But as the exchange unfolded, it was clear. Shapiro wasn't about to follow the script. Plaskett opened by reframing white privilege, not as a personal insult, but as a societal lens. She said it's not about shaming anyone, but about recognizing how skin color can shape outcomes, often in ways many never notice.
Now, it's interesting, Mr. Shapiro, you talked about white privilege. And just this week, I had a conversation with Rachel Lazar, who's done some work, a Jewish American woman who's done some work on this area, as well as having extensive conversations with Dr. Greg Parks of Wake Forest University, who's also talked quite a bit about critical race theory. And it's my understanding that white privilege is not telling individuals that they cannot speak, but it is a term for societal privilege that individuals have as a benefit of their white skin. And I don't think that, and I think universities would be remiss to then say that because you're white, you're not allowed to say anything that's critical of white people. I didn't know that white privilege actually went into that sphere. My understanding is it's just, and the issue is that white privilege makes people uncomfortable to talk about the societal privilege that they have.
Well, to me, what I say on campuses all the time is if you want to cite instances of racism that we can all find and fight together, that's something that I'm more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there is a white privilege out there in the ether and that by dint of birth your skin color generates for you an advantage, what you're really saying to people is that your view is less valuable because you have not experienced what I've experienced. And that is an identity argument, that's a character argument, that's not a rational political argument that can actually be taken on in any way. It's more of a cudgel and a club than it is an attempt to open a discussion.
Well, I think it's a demonstrable evidence that through society's demographics that being white has societal privileges that being black does not. But
we can talk about how that manifests, because that's
I'm also interested in what you just said now, is that you would stand next to anyone who has this. So, Mr. Shapiro, my question to you is, for Ms. Dunston, the tying the noose around the campus and writing messages that target African-American young students, would you consider that hate speech, and then would you stand next to her and fight for her?
As I say, I would. This is the first I'm hearing about it, honestly. But
really,
yeah. But from hearing about it, maybe because it's local. I mean, I'm from LA. But in any case, I'm more than happy to stand alongside her and fight whatever group was responsible for this. Not only more than happy. I mean, you're talking about the alt-right. Again, I was the #1 target of anti-Semitic harassment from the alt-right last year. So I'm more than happy to do all that. And I think there's one more distinction that has to be made. When we talk about cases like Taylor's, they're horrific, and the administration is siding with Taylor. Okay, the administration is doing the right thing by Taylor, or trying to do the right thing by Taylor, as they should be. And I think that we need to make a distinction between cases where the administration is actively participating in the suppression of speech and cases in which the administration is trying to do the right thing in order to punish people for application of crime.
Gentlemen, The gentlelady's time has expired.
In her view, if the term white privilege makes you uncomfortable, maybe that discomfort is the point. But Shapiro didn't let that stand. He shot back, calm, but firm. Yes, we must confront real acts of racism, but labeling people privileged just for their race. That, he argued, closes down meaningful conversation. Debate should be about facts, not identity-based accusations. As soon as the conversation becomes about who you are, not what you think, it stops being a fair fight. It turns into a tool to silence. He drew a clear line. Fight actual discrimination, but don't assign collective guilt. Shapiro insisted that invalidating someone's viewpoint because of their skin color isn't justice. It's pure division. Identity-based arguments, he warned, swap evidence for emotion and discourage honest debate. That's not a conversation starter. That's a cudgel. The room shifted. This wasn't just a discussion of social trends anymore. It was a high-stakes clash over how we talk about speech, justice, and fairness. Then, Plaskett pivoted. She brought up a chilling incident. A noose hung on a college campus. Racist messages sent to black students. She asked, would Shapiro call this hate speech? Would he stand with the victims? Shapiro's answer was immediate. He condemned the act outright. No equivocation. Hate, he said, is never acceptable, and he'd stand with anyone threatened by it. He even referenced his own experience being targeted by extremists, making it clear, standing up to hate isn't about politics, it's about morality. This undercut the suggestion that his stance on identity politics meant he ignored real racism. Instead, he hammered a principle that resonated: defend the victim, punish the criminal, but don't surrender free speech in the process. Shapiro went further, drawing a vital distinction. There's a world of difference between government suppressing speech and law enforcement prosecuting actual crimes. That's how you defend both free speech and equal protection under the law, without blurring the lines. By the end, the contrast was obvious. Plaskett pushed identity and systemic theory. Shapiro redirected every time, back to principles, individual responsibility, free speech, equal justice. What was meant to corner Shapiro instead became a showcase for his core arguments. Calm, direct, unwavering. He turned the hearing into a lesson in why ideas have to matter more than labels, and why open debate is still vital in Congress. As the cameras faded, one thing was clear. This wasn't just about white privilege, it was a defining moment in the fight between identity politics and free expression. And Shapiro, he walked away, having made his case loud and clear. If you want more moments like this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the next political showdown.